Wow, it's a lot of people. Let me try to admit people, and I think I seem to have admitted everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Well, thank you for joining. I'm actually going to put a note here. Please, write your name, uh, your PI, as well as if you are from UMB, like the downtown campus, or from NPRC, so that I can keep track. Your name, no, your email. And if you can just take your time to do that, because what I will do is I will note down your email address, and after this lecture, I'm going to share you, or whoever give me email address, um, I will send you a quiz that you can then do the quiz. And if you pass the quiz, then, well, you need 80% of the scores to pass, and then you get a certificate email to you. And that email is going to be sent from a Gmail account. So do track your junk mail, because sometimes I notice it goes to junk mails, and I don't know. Okay, I think we probably have most people here, and let me start. So the lecture is going to take about an hour, 30 minutes, maybe 80 minutes-ish. And you can feel free to ask questions in the chat, or you can ask while when I ask you guys, like, do you guys have any questions? Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. If you can see it, that would be great. So this is going to be an MI safety training for MI personnel, and the way we define MI personnel are the ones who can work safely around the MI area, not only take the responsibility of your own safety, as well as take responsibility of your participants and whoever or visitors that you bring here. So do take it seriously. And this is our imaging facility. We are located at Health Science Facility 3 on Baltimore Avenue, right next to the dental school. So we are located in the basement. And we are part of this Center for Advanced Imaging Research as well. So the learning topics of this lecture is I'm going to go through some of the basics of MIs so that you can understand very basic, but then you understand the components used in an MI scanner, as well as these hazards along with these components. And then I'm going to talk about MI safety guidelines at our site, as well as emergency protocols. From what I understand at NPRC, it's probably somewhat similar, but maybe in the future we'll just merge it and encompass everything. So the basics of MI. So, for MI, we are imaging these nuclear spins, and all these nuclear spin, they have proton, neutron, electrons, and these little spins. It's very, very abundant in the natural environment. And there are different kind of elements. Everything in yellow can actually produce MI signal. But we will be focusing on hydrogen, which is very, very abundant. Your body is full of hydrogens from water, tissue water, and everything. And then this geomagnetic ratio, it's actually a very important factor of these nuclei spins. And that is actually defines how fast all these nuclear spins spinning inside an external magnetic field. So now imagine all these nuclear spins in your body. And we have so much water in your body, right? So a huge amount of nuclear spins. And when you are not in the MI scanner, all these little spins will be randomly oriented. They will orient all different angles. But as soon as a person walks inside to an MI room, namely when you have an applied magnetic field, then these little proton spins are going to either align to the magnetic field, which are the so-called parallel directions. It's going to see this little circle here. It's actually spinning, but they are going to spinning mostly along with parallel to the applied magnetic field. But then there will be bunch of protons will be spinning anti-parallel to this magnetic field. So these are just existing. There will be parallel, and there will be anti-parallel. And then how fast these little spins spinning is dependent on this geomagnetic ratio, as well as your B0, which is your main magnetic field. So you can imagine this speed is going to differ for if you go into a 1 Tesla scanner or a 1.45 Tesla scanner or 3 Tesla scanner. It's going to be in the range of like either 43 megahertz, 64 megahertz, or 128 megahertz. And these are in the radio frequency. Like if you're listening to a radio, then megahertz is about radio frequency. That's why in order to excite these spins for MRI imaging, we use radio frequency pulses, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So from a quantum mechanics approach, and we're not going to go to the details of that, but just know when we talk about there are spins, proton spins that are either parallel or anti-parallel to the magnetic field, they are actually having a slightly different energy state. So the parallel ones have lower energy, and then the anti-parallel ones have higher energy. Why does this actually matter? It actually matters for the signal that you are going to get. So if you think about, just imagine you have 2 million protons at 0 Tesla. They are all going to be randomly oriented, no external field. But as soon as you start to apply a little bit of magnetic field from 0.5 Tesla, 1 Tesla, and 1.5 Tesla, you are going to have a roughly even split of these nuclear spins with this parallel and anti-parallel direction of spins. And then the higher the external magnetic field, you actually have more protons that's going to be at this lower energy state than the higher energy state. And their energy is also going to be farther apart. That is actually why you actually, because your signal is actually dependent on not that 1 million of protons or 2 million, but actually only of these excess protons, these 3 or 6 or 9 protons. So because everything else, it's parallel and anti-parallel, they just cancel each other. So these 9 protons are the ones actually you start to image with. and you have a delta energy between that, and then your total magnetization that you image with that produce you any MI signal, actually it depends on these excess protons. And it looks like very little, but if you think about how many hydrogen protons are there in 1 millimeter cubed tissue, that's actually a lot of excess protons to image with. So when we talk about MI image, there are typically three weightings. We have proton density weightings, we have T1 weightings, and the T2 weightings, which are three parameters that governs the MI signal quality. So the proton density actually are purely talking about how many of these excess protons you're actually working with. So that's why there's this drive to go to higher and higher field, because you get more and more signal. They have higher signal to noise ratio with this higher field strength, although there's also more danger with that. And then I just talked about T1 weighting and T2 weightings, and it's actually talk about after you excite your protons to produce MI signal, how long it takes to return back to the equilibrium status. So there are one property called the T1 value. The other property is called T2 value. So proton density and T1 value and T2 value are intrinsic properties of a specific tissue. Like gray matter or white matter have different T1, T2, and PDs. And if you look at image, and the reason why MI is so versatile is you can actually manipulate your imaging to maximize your T1 weight or your T2 weighting or proton density weighting, or now different kind of tissues. That's how you get all these crazy contrasts. Okay, let's quickly go to the components in MI. Do you guys have any questions so far? Okay, let's go to components in MI. So there are three main components in MI, which are relevant to our lecture here. One is the main magnet, and that actually takes a bulk of an MI scanner. And the purpose of it is to generate all your nuclear spins. And then the next component is radio frequency coils. We just said that all these excitation pulses to produce MI signal are radio frequency. So you actually, in order to excite the protons within your body, you need to have your coils tuned to that frequency, so that these radio frequency coils are used for transmitting as well as receiving MI signals. They are usually the closest to the human body, so that you don't have too much lost and noise in transmitting signal. So these are usually lined most inside of it, and sandwiched between your strong magnet and your radio frequency pulses are your gradient coils. So your gradient coils are the ones that you use for spatial localization. Typically, we have X gradient, Y gradient, Z gradient, because that's how you can do signal encoding in the X direction, Y direction, and Z direction for your MI signal. So let's talk about main magnet. That's the foremost and most expensive component in MI. And usually the cost of an MI scanner scales with the Teslas. 3 Tesla, it's roughly 1 Tesla is 1 million. The 3 Tesla is going to be $3 million. So here, this is a construction of a very majority of MI scanners, including our scanners here as well as at NPRC. It usually is horizontally placed, and your magnetic field are going to be horizontal, your B0 field. But if you notice, there are a lot of the field outside, because the magnetic field goes one direction inside, but then they have to go back. So you have a lot of so-called fringe field. So it extends far beyond your scanner. That's why we need to be careful about that. And yeah, just know the fringe field extends way beyond the volume of the cylinder. And then another kind of MI scanner are typically solid core magnet. And those magnets are typically a permanent magnet, and then they have coils on up, coils on the bottom, and then the magnetic field is in the vertical direction, and all the magnetic field actually goes around in this shielded box. So your fringe field is actually contained. So you don't really have so much fringe field outside. So it's actually less of a concern for safety. But it's typically for low field, like 0.5 Tesla scanner or 0.3 Tesla scanners. And most of the open MI scanners are like a solid core magnet. And then important factors, of course, is what's your field strength and what is your temporal stability and your field homogeneity and so on and so forth. And these actually, the reason why the MI is so expensive is it's actually hard to maintain all these factors. And we use superconducting wires to create this magnetic field. So in this superconducting magnet, you have aluminum former, and then these windings here have 8 sections to improve homogeneities and to minimize fringe field. So in order to realize this superconducting environment, you actually need to have all your electrical conducting materials submerged in liquid helium. Very, very low temperature. So if you see this is kind of a structure of an MI scanner. And then you have this liquid helium and the cold head, it actually keeps pumping the heliums inside. And then your coils will be inside submerging this liquid helium. And then it goes out, circulating out and taking away any heat. And when it's superconducting, you have some very nice property, right? Superconducting means there's no resistance. And when there's no resistance, then you don't even need a plug to maintain your electric field. So your magnetic field doesn't need any electricity to maintain that. So after initially charged up during installation, no electricity is needed to maintain the magnetic field. So the danger of that is the magnet is always on. Even if you power off the scanner and everything, your magnet will always be on. There's no off plug for that. And if you go inside an MI room, you're actually going to hear this chirping sound, like ch 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 sound. That's actually the cold head pumping the helium in and circulating it out. Okay, so now let's go to radio frequency coils, which I just said it's used for transmitting and receiving signals. So typically you have a body coil, which will be lined inside of the plastic shielding that the scanner have. But often you have other coils, like you have head coils, a body coils, spine coils, that's lined right next to the anatomy or your body for acquisition. And the reason is you basically just want to minimize the distance from your receiving device to your human body, which is emitting all these MI signals, because the shorter the distance, the better signal, less noise. So in order to excite and start to get MI signals, you actually deposit a lot of radio frequency energy to the body. And then you receive signal from your body. And then this is the MI signals that you are acquiring. So all these radio frequency coil, especially the transmit coil, are actually could cause heating problems. Okay, gradient field. So I said gradient fields are used for spatial localization, and the simple gist of it is so electricity create magnetic field, and in turn, magnetic field will also cause electricity. But here, if you think about two loop coils, and if you creating electricity in these loop coils, for example, this is the clockwise current, is going to create a magnetic field, which is like this blue line. Then this anti-clockwise electricity is going to create a magnetic field, which is to the opposite direction. So now imagine you have these two magnetic field, and then you combine them together. You place these coils at a fixed location and a known location. And then you could create actually a linearly varying magnetic field in the MI scanner. And if you somewhat remember what I said, all these little nuclear spins are actually spinning inside a magnetic field. And then the speed of it spinning is actually dependent on this geomagnetic ratio, which is tissue dependent or which is hydrogen dependent. But another parameter is the magnetic field. So now, if you have a linearly changing magnetic field, then you can manipulate these nuclear spins to be spinning at a different speed. Some of them will be spinning faster, some of them will be spinning slower, and that is dependent on the X location. Let's say if this is the X direction, then you can make these spins to be spinning faster or slower depending on their X location. So you can very well do the same for the Y location, Y direction and the Z direction. Then you can totally make your proton signal dependent on its X or Y or Z spatial location. Then you can use this Fourier transform to decode your signal. Again, that's too complicated and beyond the scope of this lecture, but just know that the frequency is actually dependent or highly coupled with the spatial localization of your spins. And actually after this, see, you have a linear range in the middle, but outside of the linear range, you actually lose this linearity. And then that's actually how you get MI signal when you see distortions and all these artifacts created by a non-homogeneous field or the field that's not as you calculated or programmed. But anyway, those are again, beyond the scope of this lecture. But here I just want to show you an example of an MI pulse sequence, which is like any imaging sequence are like one of these pulse sequences. And this is just within one repetition time. And you actually have these events played out over time for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 6 minutes, 10 minutes for each round. And then you actually, these are very highly timed events that you play out your IF excitation, your radio frequency excitation, and then you play out your X, Y, and Z gradients and see all these crazy gradient waveforms. But that's all the purpose is to encode your MI signal. And then at an echo time, the TE time, then you get your MI signal, which is encoded. And it actually have X and Y and the Z direction already encoded. So this is the raw MI data or this crazy looking image called K-space. But after you're doing a Fourier transform and we'll decode this frequency phase information, then it gives you a nice MI image. Okay, any questions so far? No, you're still following, not falling asleep? Okay, let's continue. So let's talk about hazard. As we gone through the three components, and you need to remember the strong magnetic field and radio frequency pulse and the gradient pulses. And then the first hazard is associated with a strong magnetic field. That's mainly, you know what you feel when you hold a magnet close to a metal, and that's strong force. So Earth itself is a little magnet, but it's a very, very tiny, very weak magnet. It is 0.5 Gauss, which is thought to be at the Earth magnetic field. And then the modern scanners are 1.5 Tesla and 3 Tesla. Just know that 1 Tesla equals 10,000 Gauss. So this is hundreds, thousand times more than the Earth magnetic field. And our MRI scanner is 3 Tesla, and the animal scanner is actually 7 Tesla or 9 Tesla. So it's actually pretty crazy if you think about how strong the magnet is. So what are the bioeffects related to your main magnetic field? And they could induce magneto-hydrodynamic effects, which are usually reversible. Like if you look at your ECG wave, you can see that the amplitude of the T wave is actually altered when the subject is placed in the magnet. And but it's not a big deal because as soon as the person walks out of the magnet, it's just reversed. And then this voltage induced is proportional to the field strength and the angle at which the aorta or the vessel is oriented in the magnet. And there's no evidence that such voltage results in any ill effect. At a very high field of the order of 450 Teslas is actually required for alteration of nerve conductions. And there's also a study that showed that prolonged exposure of both male and female rats to 9.4 Tesla has no effect on number of offsprings, growth rate, feeding patterns, blood and urine biochemistry, or behavioral development. And prolonged occupational exposures for staff to static magnetic field is unlikely to have an effect. Or let's say, since the MI is in the field, there has been no evidence exists to support cumulative effects of MI to human body over time. So it's considered pretty safe. But countries and organizations do have law and recommendations for limiting exposures for static magnetic field. And then there's guidelines from FDA back in 2014. It says adults, children, and infants greater than 1 month should use a scanner less than 8 Tesla. And neonates and infants should use a scanner less than 4 Tesla. So if you go to a 3 Tesla scanner, it's well below that limit. But if you still remember, we said that there's a big fringe field with all these horizontally placed magnetic field. And that is the danger, really. So whenever we design an MI room, we always will have a drawing like this. So this line, so in the middle, you can see this is a schematics of an MI scanner. And then around it, you are going to see this, which is called equal magnetic field lines. And you can see this line is 3 millitesla, and this line is 1 millitesla, and this line is 0.5 millitesla. So usually, what is considered safe, and we in the field, we consider 0.5 millitesla as safe, which is the 5 Gauss line. So when we design MI room, we would place very heavy metal around the MI room to shield this magnetic field so that outside of the magnet room, it's going to be less than 5 Gauss. But as soon as you step into the scanner room, the field could be more than 5 Gauss. So that's why there's special regulations. And if you do look at this graph, you can see it's kind of like a circular or ellipsoid graph there. So it's usually safer when you are at this edge of the room than if you go into more closer to the scanner. And if you search, Google search MI accidents, and you're going to see all these crazy images. And believe it or not, it still happens. Like all these accidents still happens all the time. The most recent MI-related fatalities is actually not too long ago, 2021. In South Korea, oxygen cylinder kills a South Korea man in an MI accident. And then this oxygen cylinder was carried into the scanning suite during his exam. And then he was hit by this oxygen tank, and that's pretty crazy. And then the one fatality before that is 2018 in India. A man actually dies after being sucked into an MR machine, again carrying an oxygen cylinder, although this man was not killed by the oxygen cylinder, but he was stuck by it, and then also he died from inhaling liquid oxygen that leaked from the cylinder. And in MI, there actually has been a recent big accident. An inmate, prison guard, stuck to MI machine at unregulated site at Simon Medical. A technologist just made a critical error and did not ask the person to remove the shackles around his waist. So then imagine you have this big metal, and then of course this metal is going to fly to the magnet and then suck this patient also there. And there's another accident.
New at 10, a freak accident at a Bay Area hospital, an MRI scan that went horribly wrong.
Now there are claims that lack of oversight is putting patients at risk.
Can you guys hear the sound?
Investigates how life-saving equipment can become dangerous.
Yes.
Threatening.
It was late February at Kaiser's Redwood City Medical Center, an ordinary day from the outside, but inside an MRI technician reported hearing screaming coming from the other room. This photo explains why. The hospital bed was pulled uncontrollably into the MRI machine by its magnetic force. A nurse became pinned between the bed and the machine, reports say. She suffered crushing injuries. The patient fell to the floor. The incident is detailed in a Cal OSHA investigation, concluding Kaiser failed to ensure the door to the MRI room remained closed and employees were following safety guidelines. The injured nurse recalling,
"I was getting pushed by the bed. Basically, I was running backwards. If I didn't run, the bed would smash me underneath."
My first thoughts were, not again.
Tobias Gilk is an MRI safety expert whose own...
Yeah, you get it. So this is another video that just shows you how strong the force a small oxygen tank is going to be. Hear the sound? That's actually the chirping sound. So as the magnetic field actually quickly rise as you get closer to the center of the MI, this projectile motion is also going to accelerate really, really fast. So that's pretty horrible. Even if you are not, some metal are not projectile, for example, aluminum. And for aluminum, it's not going to fly. But as you see this person trying to move an aluminum shield, this there will be electric current actually being generated in the material that's going to create a torque and a rotational force that you can see it's really hard. And he's not faking it. It's going to be really hard to move these aluminum plates inside the scanner. So there's another MI fatality. A 74-year-old referred for MI scan, and the screening indicated that she had an aneurysm clip. And staff actually contacted surgeon to confirm the type of implanted clip. And the staff checked the clip type and were deemed to be safe. And then the patient actually being scanned, then had a severe hemorrhage and died, because if it's not of a safe metal, even if it doesn't fly out of your head, it will rotate and then causing damage to the brain. And then the surgeon provided wrong information on the clip, and the clip itself was found to be not safe for MI. So these are really bad. That's actually why we take it very seriously at our imaging center. If you have any implanted devices, we cannot just take your word for it. All the implant should have an implant card, which shows the device, the name and manufacturer, as well as the model name. Then we can check this safety information. So because of all these crazy incidents and accidents, the area around the MI suite, we have site access restrictions. There are MI Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, and Zone 4. And really, Zone 3 and Zone 4 are both restricted access, and that's for screened patients only and for MI personnel only. So if you look at an example layout in an MI suite, you can see that the magnet room is Zone 4. It's like strictly forbidden. It's going to be more than 5 Gauss line. Don't step into it without being screened, and take everything off your body. Well, anything metal. You don't need to take off your clothes always. And then the control room, where we have the MI console and where the technologist sits, as well as the study coordinator may be communicating to your subject, as well as the equipment room. These are considered Zone 3, which is restricted access, but it will be above 5 Gauss line. But we still require people, like especially patient, if they come into the scanner control room, they should have already been screened. And then patient waiting areas, or restrooms, or console rooms, these are all fine. It's considered Zone 2, and they are free access, and that's actually where you are supposed to do your MI screening, as well as changing clothes and everything. So we talked all these dangers. So we know ferromagnetic and metallic materials are bad. Ferromagnetic materials include iron, steel, cobalt, nickel, and alloys. And they will get strongly magnetized in the external magnetic field. And then these resulting forces will be proportional to the volume of the ferromagnetic material, the local magnetic field, as well as the gradient field. So the reason I put the equation here is just know the larger the item is, the larger the force is going to be. It's going to fly to the MI, and you will not be able to remove it sometimes. It's like if it's really an oxygen cylinder being stuck, human force will not be able to unstuck it. You can only ramp down the magnet and make it no field to remove it. And then the ferromagnetic object should be restricted from entering zone 3. Zone 3, even the control room, they should not go in there. The handheld magnet, we have a handheld magnet for testing. So if you're not sure, or if you need to work on some new devices, then you need to talk to us, our staff, very carefully, and then we will schedule testing sessions with you, and we will talk to the vendors and to document this device compatibility. Yeah, I just want to emphasize this volume. And then potentially dangerous object, if you just think about it, I'll just throw a list here: oxygen tanks, patient bed, chairs, question card, linen cards, scissors, paper clips, keys, watch, phones, credit cards. Credit cards won't fly. They are plastic, but it's going to be erased if you don't want to go get a new card. And this shows an MI screening checklist that we typically do. This is actually adapted from our from the ISMIM website. It's double page, and they will ask you a lot of questions. And when you are answering these questions, just go through with them, because sometimes if you only do the back of the sheet, you see it's asking all these different devices and they'll just say no, 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 no. But if they are yes, you are supposed to mark it on the body diagram there. And then the patient is supposed to sign, and is subject, and whoever does the checklist is also going to sign there, and our technologists are going to sign as well on the day of MI. And the reason for when we ask about this, like if you have had other MIs and CTs, as well as if you have had any surgeries, don't take it very lightly, because oftentimes patients will forget what they have in their body. So by asking them what surgeries they have had, sometimes it will help us identify potential risk metals in their body. Yeah, just make sure that you sign it, whoever goes through the checklist with them. And then the MI checklist should have been filled out before the subject even comes to us for scanning. You should really do that when you screen your subjects, because if the person is not even eligible to do MI, then it makes zero sense to enroll them in an MI study, right? And that's going to be a waste of time for your blocking the scanner time, as well as a waste of your staff time for coordinating and getting the subject in. And also, if there's anything that's marked as a yes, please let us know. Then we can, ahead of time, it doesn't need to be on the day of MI. Ahead of time, we can intersect any potential issues, and then we can try to clear it before it. So it oftentimes takes a few days to clear any device. Here is a very quick summary, a checklist, just as a very brief list. Again, it's not exhaustive, but for preliminary screening of research subjects for MI studies, it should take place during subject recruitment by MI safety trained personnel, namely you guys. And the question will include, do you have any implanted devices? Usually, knee or hip replacements are okay, and all these orthopedic devices, but you should still mark yes and check with us. And other devices, you should contact us to further understand if they are okay. And then these absolutely not criteria include no pacemakers, no cochlear implants, no stents of unknown type. If it's a known type, or if it's placed more than 6 weeks, check with us. And also no severe claustrophobia. That's not a safety really issue, but really it could cause problems if a person know that she or him have severe claustrophobia, then most likely she's not going to last this 1 hour long research MI scan inside a small tube. And if you are not sure, you can contact our office and we can actually schedule test sessions. And then we have mock scanners and we can even schedule time on the scanner just to get a feel if the person can do it or not. And also any prior eye injuries or foreign bodies like bullets in the eye especially. So we typically will need prior x-rays to confirm clearance of metals in the eye, a doctor's notes confirming the object has been removed, and the notes that the subject has had prior MIs at another institution does not qualify them for eligibility here because they may have a different MI scanner or they may have different sequences, pulse sequences wrong. So this I want to highlight because we've literally turned away subjects because of this. One more thing, circular contact lenses, this color, circle contact lenses, these color contact lenses are not MI safe. Ask the person to remove it before they come. So for devices, there's actually a whole range of MI safe, not MI safe, and MI conditional. MI safe are plastic things. They are usually MI safe. And then the not MI safe are ferromagnetic items. These two are if they say MI safe, then it's MI safe, that's fine. But there are a whole lot of things that's MI conditional, which is items with no or negligible ferromagnetic forces. It needs to be further examined before entering Zone 4. So and as new medical devices are constantly being introduced, so MI personnel must remain very vigilant in screening your screening practices. And again, I want to emphasize, if any person have any implant, we actually will require a make and a model to establish safety. Like we need an implant card or a surgical note so that we can ensure safety. Okay. A lot about the main magnetic field. Now let's move on to the second hazard, which is IF pulses. It's radio frequency pulses, which is mainly could cause heating. So we talk about radio frequency coils, which produce or transmit these radio frequency pulses for transmitting and receiver signals. And the reason is, if you still remember when we talk about these nuclear spins in the main magnetic field, they will be aligned to the magnetic field or anti-parallel to the magnetic field. But in order for MI signal to be detected, your main magnetic field, if it's in the main MI field, then that magnetic field is too weak to be detected in surrounding strong magnetic field. So you have to use an IF pulse to excite it, to tip this magnetization to the transverse plane. And then you can listen, have your receiver coil there to listen to the signal or the IF signal within the transverse plane. And that's actually essentially what your MI signal is coming from. And then the only problem is when you deposit IF pulses, that's going to be a lot of IF energy being deposited to the person. And that problem is even more problematic for large participant. Oh, for large participant, I want to emphasize one thing. Our MI scanner ball is only 60 centimeter. So very large subject, if they are above 250 pound, especially if above 300 pound, it could be a problem to fit into the small tunnel. But and it really depends on how tall the person is versus what's the weight, because think about it as 60 centimeter ball. And then another issue with large participant is there's a lot of energy, RF energy, because you have a lot of proton signal to excite. So there's going to be a lot of energy deposited, and then you could more likely to run into heating problems and et cetera, et cetera. So the bio effect, of course, it's a heating or the thermal effect. So apoptosis deposit energy into tissues. There are heat-sensitive tissues like eyes and testes, although there's no evidence of deleterious effect. But then the time varying radio frequency pulses, if you realize why we call it time varying, because we turn it on and off, so it changes over time. And then whenever you have a changing electricity and magnetic field, you are actually going to create conductive electricity again. So you will have electrically conductive material leads while implants. These monitoring leads can cause skin burns and looped wires, or conductive materials can cause induced electrical voltage and currents and cause heating and displacement. And there are clothes that may contain electrically conductive materials. And also you may have skin staples or superficial metallic sutures. And this just shows an example of first-degree tattoo burn caused by MI machine. And this is IF burn from non-carbon electrodes. That's actually nowadays MI-related fatalities really declined for a good part of things, or even injuries. But actually 70% of reported MI-related injuries are actually burns. And this RF energy is measured by the so-called specific absorption rate. And I put this equation here is not for you to really remember the equation, but know that it's related to the main magnetic field. So 3 Tesla is actually going to have more SAR issue or heating issue than a 1.5 Tesla scanner. And then also your pulse sequences, how much flip angle it is, and then also your repetition time, imaging parameters. So also electrical currents may be induced in conductive materials during gradient switching, causing heating of the wires and the leads. So other objects and any non-necessary wires should not be left in the room. You also need to be careful with wires and nodes touching the subject's skins. And also human body is conductive. So this actually shows an example, like you actually don't want even the human body to form a circle. For example, having your hands cross each other, or don't wear a paper pants, then your thighs may be touching. But if you wear paper pants, it's better. We have had incidents that patient actually had heating, burn because of the sweat accumulated inside of her thighs years ago. So no loops, do not form any loops of cables. Legs and hands should not be crossed, and use sheets to cover subject to avoid touching the ball. So just no looping, because the looping is like conductive loops, which is not good. And what do we do with tattoos or wires? If the participant have excessive tattoos, especially if those seem to have metallic ink, then you should talk to us to see eligibility. Small tattoos are usually fine, but if there are tattoos, usually our practice have been just ask the subject to be very vigilant about their feeling, and then if they feel any burns anywhere, then they should let us know. So we will take them out of the scanner immediately, instead of having them last through the end of the scan and causing burns. And also only MI safe wires and leads should be allowed, and only tested wires should really go in there. Okay, so our last hazard is the fast switching gradient field, which typically causes peripheral nerve stimulation as well as loud noises. So the gradient coils are and we talk about IF coils, magnetic field, and gradient coils. And the gradient coils are typically a sheet of copper wires on the scanner ball. And as I said, if you remember this graph, the diagram, it shows the switching on and off of this gradient. And per Faraday's law of induction, rapid switching of gradients induces electrical currents in conducting tissues. And so that's why changing magnetic field will generate currents, and then moving magnetic field will just induce currency. And scanners with EPI capability, well, EPI are those scans if you do any of the resting state functional MRIs or DTIs. These are all echoplanar imaging. And our scanners are all like with these EPI capabilities. And they can really generate currents that may exceed the nerve polarization threshold and cause peripheral nerve stimulations. And theoretically, the possibility exists for stimulating cardiac muscles. So there is, so the stimulation of motor nerves and skeletal muscles have been reported. And your subject may report to you that, oh, during this and that scan, I feel my nerve twitching. And that's actually normal, not something of concern. And some subjects may experience a harmless sensation of flashes of lights, and that's probably caused from retinal stimulation by induced currents. And respiratory and cardiac stimulations requires exposure levels to the order of 3 to 80 times required for PNS, peripheral nerve stimulation. So the scanner actually limits the so-called DBDT, which is the change of the magnetic field over a change of time, like the ramp. The scanner actually limits how fast you can switch in this gradient. And then you can see this is level 1 is typically where we operate at, this gray line, which is the peripheral nerve stimulation limit. And the cardiac muscle limit is much, much higher. And so it's not of concern. But what is really of concern is actually noise. So this table actually shows environmental noise with the quietest place as 0 dB. And you can see your like normal conversation is about 60 dBs. And a subway train is at 95 dB, and level at which sustained exposure may result in hearing loss is at 90 to 95 dB. And even short-term exposure can cause permanent damage, or the loudest recommended exposure with hearing protection is 140 dB. And that's actually the EPI kind of sequences could really create that much of a noise. So do be careful of that. And this noise is really, it's caused by switching off the gradient. So when you switch off the gradient, it actually causes a torque within these electric wires. And then these electric wires, when it has torque, it will move. And then, but they are all in this plastic shell of coils or something in the scanner. So then you have these electrical wires trying to torque, and then they will hit their housing. And then so anytime you have a pulse sequence, imaging sequence running, you're going to hear this loud banging noise. And then when a sequence ends, there's no switching off gradient, then the noise will end. So system manufacturer must issue warnings on system console if a particular pulse sequence is likely to be above 99 dB. And 140 dB is potential cause for acoustic trauma. And so we typically offer earplugs, which provides about 30 dB attenuation. Then the headphones offers another 30 dB attenuation. And sometimes we offer that in tandem, but usually we do a 30 dB earplug. But what you should also know is all patients or staff, if they are going to be remaining in Zoom 4, the scanner room, during imaging, they also need to use hearing protections because you are also going to hear this really loud noise. Okay, MI safety guidance. MI personnel, like you guys, you should be trained and educated in MI safety, and you can enter into and work within the Zoom 4 independently. But you should have MI safety screening checklist done with us, and you should also notify us if there are any status change because you want to ensure you can do your own MI screening checklist. And you see if you have any questions, you should let us know. And for all non-MI personnel, you must first pass an MI safety screening process before entering Zoom 3. And likely the same screening procedure as patients. And that includes janitorial staff, construction workers, students, participants, visitors, or anyone who are not trained yet. The MI safety screening procedure will include written screening form, verbal screening interviews, and verification of information by our technologist. What about special populations, for example, pregnant women? So healthcare workers, there's actually no current limit on working in and around the MI scanner, but you are advised not to remain within Zoom 4 during actual scanning. And for patient and participants, it's typically an exclusion criteria for research studies, but for patients, when we have a risk-benefit assessment in place, and we do patient scans on pregnant women all the time. For pediatric patients, there will be no toys or non-MI screened comfort items entering Zoom 4. All children will be gone before entering Zoom 4, and all accompanying remaining adults also should be screened before they enter Zoom 3 and Zoom 4 and offering hearing protections. And at CTRIM, also all research subjects entering Zoom 4 will need to be gowned because we want to make sure that there's no metallic things in their clothes, and also there are no remaining items that they have in their pockets. Okay. Now we move on to something that's more rarely happens, but you should still know. So I already said that the magnet is always on, but it can be powered off. It's very costly and it should be done seriously and only when there is personnel injury emergencies. So this is called magnet quench. So you typically have this device in the MI control room, probably on the wall somewhere. And there is a button being covered by plastic for good reason, because so that you don't accidentally hit it. So this is a quench button. So magnet quench, when it happens, the temperature of superconducting wires rise rapidly. Remember when I said your MI is actually created by electric wires, but these electric wires are submerged in liquid helium to create this superconducting zero resistance condition. But if you do a magnet quench, this temperature of the superconducting wires will rise rapidly so that you can create resistance and to reduce your magnetic field. And in that case, because the temperature is going to rise, your liquid helium will boil off violently. there is going to be enormous volume of gas vented out of the magnet through a quench vent pipe, which is connected on the top of the magnet and causing a very large booming sound. But however, it's a problem if the quench vent pipe fails. For example, there's ice blockage, or there's a bird creating a nest there for whatever reason, the gas will enter the scanner suite. I remember one of the 2018 fatalities caused by the patient inhaling liquid oxygen. So this super cool helium boil off will be dangerous. Yeah, this liquid oxygen will result from the super cool air, and it will also increase fire hazard. And also, that was before the inflation, that's $80,000 quench, because you could very well cause damage to the hardware when doing this magnet quench. So don't quench it lightly. This shows an example of what quench happens. That is outside the scanner room. And then you can see liquid helium just boils off. And this is venting through the quench vent pipe, but it's not, it's going to go inside the scanner room, which is not good. This is another uncontrolled MI quench.
Routine equipment transfer at Peninsula Regional Medical Center. Technicians were to replace a used MRI or magnetic resonance imaging unit with a new one. But as workers stood nearby, the old machine blew up. Fortunately, no one was injured in the blast, but it did surprise everybody. Our own Hank Bounds caught it on tape. Some 47's Andrew Christopoulos reports.
So that actually changed the MI transportation. Nowadays, you don't transport this charged up magnet. You actually install the magnet first, and then you put in liquid helium and bring it down to a superconducting condition. Okay, so what do you do when you have a magnet quench? So if a magnet quench happens, there's going to be rapid reduction of magnetic field in about 2 minutes. There's going to be loud noise and hissing sound will happen, as you just heard. You should evacuate Zoom 4 very quickly. You should close scanner room door. And then there should be no responding fire or rescue personnel allowed in Zoom 3 or Zoom 4 until confirmation that the field has successfully dissipated. If it is not patient safety, but equipment got stuck to the magnet, which also happens, you do not quench the magnet. You can do something much more gracefully by asking the service engineer to come out and ramp down the magnet, which takes a few hours, and they will gradually reduce the magnetic field. But then you don't have this like rapidly boiling off helium problem. Okay, so magnet quench, don't do that. I hope nobody ever need to do that. There's another button which is called emergency shutdown. So which is maybe every building will be slightly different, but that's what it looked like in our HSF3 building. There will be this emergency power off button, which is also covered by plastic so that you don't hit it. And then this emergency power off button will shut all power supplies to the scanner, all electronic related, which includes your MI console computer and your gradient cabinets, your IF cabinets, and are all in the equipment room. So you literally shut off power to the MI scanner, all powers. But your superconducting wire is still there. Your 3 Tesla is still there. Okay. And this is not a quench So magnetic field is still present, so you should follow proper procedures by acknowledging that the magnetic field is still there. Have your doors always closed. And then this is in case of fire in the equipment room, or it will be applicable to water leak potential or other potential hazardous situations. But that's for emergency. And you can very well also just turn off the MRI. And it takes about 15-20 minutes. So that's also possible. You don't always have to do emergency power off. So again, emphasize, in case of emergency, you stop scanning, you remove patients and participants from MI room, you quench the magnet if patients or participants are in danger, and you emergency shut down the magnet in fire or water or in other hazardous situations. And I should also emphasize there, if it is a fire alarm somewhere, there's no immediate danger here, you just turn off your MI, which takes 15-20 minutes, which is good, so that you properly save all your image so you don't lose your data. And then you lock your MI scanner door and keep it closed, and then you evacuate. Okay, in summary, the MI environment can be very dangerous. You have static magnetic field, which have force and have missile effect. You have time-varying radio frequency magnetic field, which can have thermal effect. And you have time-varying gradient magnetic field. You have nerve stimulations or noises. So you need to follow strict MI zoning guidelines. You should restricted access to zone 3 and zone 4, and you should be taken very seriously for the MI screening checklist. And never bring anyone to the magnet room unless they have been cleared by the technologist. Also, never bring any equipment devices into MI room unless consulted with our personnel. Again, remind for the 1,000th time, the magnetic field is at full power always, and it is always on. And here are our center directors, Dr. Ernst, medical director, Dr. Lina Chen. I am I'm here, and our technologists, Andy, Ryan, Terrence, and Rosie, and our patient coordinator or front desk, Morgan Welsh, and our office administrator, Emily Moore. Thank you very much, and I shall return to you guys if you guys have any questions. No questions? Are there any questions in the chat? Oh, can exposure to 90 MI scanner cause headaches? Are you talking about animal scanner? So actually, the larger the scanner ball, the larger the fringe field. So our MI, whole body MI scanners have a very big 60-centimeter ball. So the fringe field is humongous. So you need literally the whole MI room to contain the field. For animal scanner, the ball size is very small because you are doing mice, rats, guinea pigs. And the ball is only like 20 centimeter big. So the 70 or the 90 Bruker or the animal scanner is actually having a much well shielded in terms of distance magnet. So if you are only walking inside the room to do some animal preparation work, you are not going to feel as much pulling or magnetic field as you experience even at a 3T magnet. But there are some whole body 70 scanner like Kennedy Krieger, our Hopkins partner have a 70 human scanner that could cause dizziness or headaches for someone, especially if you walk through the magnetic field very quickly, like you are having a very quick increasing of a magnetic field. Very good question. Anybody else have any questions? I was not paying attention to my chat. And also I remind anybody have put your name, email address, most importantly, into the list, because otherwise I will not be able to email you the quiz. And also the quiz may go to your junk box. It should be sent out before tonight. And if you don't receive it, check your junk box or email me. And the certificate will be sent out within a week or two, because usually I do that in a batch after a week or two. So give it a little bit time. Okay, any other questions? And then another question for you guys is, are you able to follow my lecture properly, or is it like too fast, too slow? Everything good? Okay. I will try to post. I think this is recorded, and I will try to post this lecture to a YouTube link, and I will share the link with you guys if you want to review it. Okay, and if there are anyone who you know that cannot attend this lecture because of time conflict, they can watch the video as well, but they may need to attend the lecture maybe next time to get a certificate. That's all. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Let me see my